We begin the Gemara today towards the bottom of Daf Ayin Beis Amud Beis, where it says Tana Rabbanan. The shir today is dedicated to L'schus Yom Haledes of Avram ben Esther, Shirav Shnas Hatzlacha, Begashmis V'Ruchnis, and the schus of this shir and all the shiurim. Tana Rabbanan Ger Noisim Mamzeres. A ger is allowed to marry a mamzeres. Divrei Rabbi Yosi, that's Rabbi Yosi's opinion. We had this, but I said these two opinions are quoted earlier in the Gemara, and here we'll see the source of this machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer ger lo yisim mamzeres. A ger is not allowed to marry a mamzeres. Another halacha the Braisa says regarding a ger, echad eved mishuchrer, whether a ger or an eved kanani that was freed, which is also a ger, v'cholol, or a kayin, which is a cholol, which is pasul, mutarim b'kehenes. They're allowed to marry a kehenes, which basically is saying that the halachas of a kayin that's not allowed to marry people that are pasul for him is only for the zachar, the kayin, not a kehenes. A kehenes is allowed to marry these individuals. Okay, so the Gemara explains the machlokes is my time with Rabbi Yosi. What's Rabbi Yosi's source? That a ger is allowed to marry a mamzeres. Chamisha kaholi ksivi. The reason is because in the Torah, where it speaks about the different psulim that are not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, it says 5 times the expression of kahol. Asher brings them all here. It says layavi mamze bekal Hashem. It says again layavi le bekal, layavi amoni mayavi bekal regarding Ammon and Mayav. Then it says over there layavi bekal. Then it says by mitzri dor shlishi layavi le bekahol. So that's 5 times. And then Rashi says that it says a 6th time kahol by pitzua daka, but that's not in part of the sugi here because it's not talking about someone that's possible because of yichus. Okay, so the Gemara is going to explain why does the Torah have to write 5 times the term kahol? The Torah could write all these psulim in one pasuk and write the term kahol once. Says the Gemara, chad lekayanim. One is to say that these psulim are not allowed to marry kayanim. Chad leleviyim. 2nd time is to say that they're not allowed to marry leviyim. Chad liyisraelim. The 3rd time is to say they can't marry any Eden from Yisraelim as well. And v'chad, then the 4th time, it says kahol lemishri mamzer b'shtuki. It's coming to say that a mamzer is allowed to marry a shtuki. Because a shtuki is someone that you don't know if he's part of the regular call of Klal Yisrael, or maybe he himself is a mamzer. So call means he has to be vadai part of the call. If he's a suffix, if he's part of the call of Yidden, so then he's going to be mutter. And v'chad, and the 5th time when it says call lemishri shtuki b'Yisrael. This shtuki, which is a suffix, we don't know who he is, so he is allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. So that's the 5 times that it says kahal. If so, kahal gadim, but now when it comes to gadim, lo yikri kol. For them, we don't have another word kahal to come and say that they're considered to be kal as well, that these psulim are not allowed to marry gadim, because we used up all these 5 calls already for other drashas. So therefore, Rabbi Yosi says, Gadim are not call, and Mamzerim are allowed to marry Gadim. But Rabbi Yehuda here disagrees with the way we darshan all these 5 words of kahal, and the Gemara has a few options to explain Rabbi Yehuda. Either we could say as follows, Kainim u'Leviyim echat kol nafke. Rabbi Yehuda holds that Kainim and Leviyim are learned out from the same call because they're the same shevet. So therefore, Yatile lekal Gadim. So he has the extra call to say that Gadim are also part of the congregation, the call of Klal Yisrael. So Mamzerim can't marry Gadim. Or another pshat we could say, Hachanami tre kalininu. Even if you need 2 calls, one for Kainim, for one for Leviyim, but Mamzer b'shtuki. The halacha that a Mamzer is allowed to marry a shtuki, or shtuki b'Yisrael, and the fact that a shtuki is allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, mechat kol nafka. That could be learned out from one call, and the Gemara explains why. When it says lo yavoy Mamzer b'kal Hashem, so I can darshan the word Mamzer, and I can darshan the word b'kal Hashem. When it says Mamzer, what Mamzer means, Mamzer vade. Hudu lo yavoy. Mamzer means he has to be confirmed definitely as a Mamzer. He can't come into Klal Yisrael. Hamamzer safik, but if it's someone that is a mamzer that you're not sure about it, then Yove Bekol. He could marry into Klal Yisrael. So that's the source that a shtuki could marry into Klal Yisrael. Now, when it says Bekohol, Vadei Hudulo Yovoi, Ha Bekol Safik Yovoi. The Isser is when it says Kohol, that a mamzer is not allowed to marry into a kol. If you know someone, he's confirmed as a mamzer, he's not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. But when is he not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael? Only if it's somebody that you know for sure that he's part of Klal Yisrael. Not if it's a shtuki where there's a suffix. So you don't need 2 separate calls for these 2 halachas, because one is learned from mamzer, that mamzer has to be mamzer vadai, and the other is learned from kohol, that call has to be a vadai call, and only then are you not allowed to marry into them. So again, the point is you have extra kahal to teach that gerim are also part of the kahal. Vibai Seime, or a third way how to explain Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is Hani Nami Tirei Kol Yininu. For these, there are two kahal. I do need two words kahal to teach both of these halachas. That a mamzer suffix is allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, and that the kahal suffix is allowed to marry a mamzer. You do need two kahals for this, and the reason is Rashi over here explains because otherwise I wouldn't just learn out from the word mamzer, like the Gemara just said, that mamzer means only a mamzer vadai and not a mamzer suffix. Rashi here says the famous klal that we know regarding any da iser that's a suffix minatayre. What's the halacha? Sveika da'iraisa l'chumre, and you'd have to be machmer. If not for the fact that you have an extra call to teach me that a suffix mamzer is mutter, I would say it's a suffix minatayre. Suffix minatayre is aser. And here the Mefarshim say, here you see that Rashi holds that this idea that Sveika Dairaisa, a Safek Menatayr is L'chumre, it's the reason Yamachmer is Menatayr, not just Midrabanan. There's a famous machlokes whether this is Midraisa or Midrabanan. Rashi says that it's Menatayr, you would have to be Machmer, so you do need an extra kahal for that. So V'taimei de Rabbi Yehuda, mehacha. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? Where does he see that a ger is also part of the kahal? It's a pasuk, a different pasuk, another kahal. It says Hakal Chuka Achas Lachem. For the congregation, there's one halacha for everyone, vila ger, and for the ger as well. Vila ger hagor, that is. So over here, the pasuk is saying la ger hagor, and it's saying that he's also part of the call. Rabbi Yossi, why didn't Rabbi Yossi learn from this pasuk? He tells you chuka achas hifsek inyan. And the way the Torah writes it starts off saying hakol, then it says in the middle chuka achas, and then it says vila ger hagor. The Torah is separating that the ger is not part of the regular call, so therefore he can't. He's not part of the call, so that is a mamzer could marry into a ger. Okay, now the next halacha of this braisa, it said echad ger v'echad eved mishuchre v'cholol mutarim b'kohenes. They're allowed to marry a kohenes. Says the Gemara Messiah le'Rav. What it says here in this braisa is a proof to what Rav said. Dam Rav Yudah Rav le'huzaru ksheiros the kohenos which are kosher. They were not warned le'hinasil l'psulim, not to get married to anybody that's puzzle. Well, the halachas that it says regarding a kohen is only regarding the zachar and not regarding the nekeva, not regarding the kohenes. Darash Rab Zeire b'mechuzah. Rab Zeire darshaned in the city Mechuzah. Now, the city Mechuzah, as we'll see here, was a city that was full of gerim. So, but he darshaned there that ger mutter b'mamzeres, that a ger is allowed to marry a mamzeres. So that basically shows the gerim that at least regarding yichus, they're treated differently, and they're allowed to marry a mamzer. So what happened? They were upset at him for saying such a thing. Ragmu kula alma besregayu. So all the gedim there came and stoned him with their esregim. Amar Rave, so Rave said about what Rab Zeire did. Mi yikid darish mulsik yahai beduchtu the shchiche geyuri. It just makes sense to go and say such a halacha openly and publicly in a place where you know there's a lot of gedim. You're putting yourself in danger. Darish Rave b'mechuzah. So now Rave, he did the opposite. He darshed in the mechuzah something for the gerim that will make them feel good. Ger mutter b'kohenes. A ger is allowed to marry a kohenes. So now they heard this. Oh, we can marry to the kohenim, kohenes. Tahanu b'shiroi. So they dressed him in a shiroi with a nice silk garment. But now after he said this, then he dashed into them like Rab Zeire, ger mutter b'mamzeres. A ger could marry a kohenes, but a ger is also allowed to marry a mamzeres. Amrulei, when they heard that he said this, they said, "Afsid tila kamaisa." Now you lost our honor you got from your first statement that you said. Amalahu, so Rava said, "No, I was saying this for your benefit. I'm saying I want to tell you what's good for you. You have more options of who you can marry. If you want, you can marry a kohenes. And if you want, you can marry a mamzeres. You have either option. So I'm showing you that you have more options. That I'm making it better." The Gemara concludes, what's the halacha regarding this? Ger mutter b'kohenes. A ger is allowed to marry a kohenes. And also mutter b'mamzeres. It's allowed to marry mamzeres. Mutter b'kohenes, as we said before, lehuzaru ksheiros linasi l'psulim. Rav said that the kohenes, which are kosher, do not have the issur of marrying anyone that's puzzle. Mutter b'mamzeres ke Rab Yossi. We pass like Rab Yossi that says that a ger is mutter with a mamzeres. Okay, going back to the Mishnah, we had in the Mishnah the shtuki. Elu hein shtuki kol shemake. The Mishnah said a shtuki is someone that knows who his mother is, but does not know who his father is. When he wants to call to his father, his mother quiets him down. Amar Rave. So Rave says regarding the status of the shtuki. What did it say in the Mishnah regarding the shtuki? He's not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. A shtuki could marry another shtuki. A shtuki could marry a shtukis, someone else that's on his level, but not into Klal Yisrael. So now Rav explains. Dvar Teire shtuki kosher. Minat Teire, the halacha should be that this shtuki that doesn't know who his father is should be allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. Why is this? My time. Roiv ksherim etzla. This shtuki that knows who his mother is, so because he knows who his mother is, he knows that his mother was not an Eishes Ish. When she had a relation with this man, she was not an Eishes Ish, and therefore, most people that could have had a relation with his mother are people that are kosher. There's only a minority that would be puzzle. The different arayas that there are in the Torah, relatives, that's a miut. Most people in the world are not asa to his mother. They're not an erve. So then, if he was born, you don't know if this child, this shtuki, is a mamzer or not. You should follow Raiv. Raiv says that it's probably not a mamzer. Now, the Gemara clarifies, not always do you follow Raiv. When it comes to Raiv, it depends what happened here, as the Gemara explains. Now, if the man that came and had a relation with this mother, so if they came to her, so then the rule is, kol de parish, miru beparish, that when someone comes away from where the people are settled and established in one place, they're parish, they're moving, they're going away from where they are settled, and so then the rule is you follow Raiv. That you separated, you came from a crowd of people and you separated from them. So we follow the Raiv and say that you're probably kosher to marry this mother. Now, Ma Yomrit, what are you going to say? Dilma Osla Ligabayu. Maybe what happened over here is that she went to the man, she had a relation with this man in his house where he is. And if so, Havale Kavua, here a different halacha applies. That if the man, which we have a doubt who he is, but he, the man, was Kavua, in a place where he lives, where he's established, then the halacha is you don't follow Raiv. B'chol Kavua kemechtzal mechtzah dami. Then we say that this is considered to be a 50-50 suffix. And we learned this in the Gemara in Ksubis, it learns this out from Sukkim, and this is the famous example regarding the meat that's found in the street, or the meat that you have a suffix, which store it came from. So this is the same halacha applied over here as well. So over here, you can argue and say that kemechtzal mechtzah dami. Right, so here, the Gemara uses the term of dilma, maybe. Maybe this is what happened. And so the Amos says, if it's only a maybe, then you should still follow the Raiv, because you don't know for sure that it's a kavua. The fact that it could have been kavua is maybe, but there's also a chance that it could have not been kavua, so you should still follow the Raiv. But the truth is, the Rishayim over here say it's not only a dilma. The Gemara is saying, what are you going to say in a case where you know for a fact that the mother went to the man, and over there is where you had a relation with him, so it is kavua. So it's 50-50. So it should be minat Torah asafik. Says the Gemara, but still minat Torah, it's going to be mutter because of Torah amra. The pasuk says regarding mamzer, as we quoted before, lo yave mamzer. A mamzer is not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, and that's a mamzer vada. It has to be a confirmed mamzer. Who do lo yave? Ha mamzer is suffik, but if it's a suffik, yave the call. And another thing we learn out from there, vadai hu do lo yave. Only a mamzer vadai can't come into the call. Ha bekal suffik. But if he wants to marry someone that you don't know if he is part of Klal Yisrael or not, so then even this vadai mamzer is allowed to marry someone that it's a suffix if he's part of the kshedim of Klal Yisrael or not. Yavai. Okay, so we see clearly that there's a pasuk that says that a suffix mamzer is allowed. So what's a shtuki? A shtuki is the most you could say a shtuki is a suffix mamzer, and could even be less than that. Could even be it's a case of roiv, so it's not even a suffix at all. Ma tamam shtuki pasul. Why did we say that a shtuki is pasul to marry into Klal Yisrael? That if he's marrying someone, how do you know that he's not marrying his sister? Maybe his father was mizana with his mother, and that father was mizana with someone else, and now the woman you're marrying is your sister. Says the Gemara. Again? Oh, one second. Let's see what the Gemara is going to say soon. So there's a gzeira that it might be his sister. If this is what you're concerned about, we don't know who he's marrying. Maybe it's his sister. Elameata shtukis lo isa. If so, a shtuki should not be allowed to marry someone that's the same as him. A shtukis. The Mishnah said that a shtuki is not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, but a shtuki could marry a shtukis. But why not? Why? Yes, that is. You should say that she's not allowed. Why? Again, the same concern. Shema yisa chaysa miyaviv. How do you know who this shtukis is? Maybe it's a sister. Maybe it's his sister. Okay, let me just go back a second to explain. Before, when the Gemara said Shemi Yisa Chaisami Aviv, so the Gemara over there, the concern is not the fact that maybe the father was mizana with someone else. That's what the Gemara is going to say over here right now. Before, what the Gemara is saying is that here is a shtuki. He doesn't know who his father is. Maybe the father is also the father of this woman that he wants to marry. Right. So how do we know that he's allowed to marry the sister? But here the Gemara says, if that's your concern, that you don't know who the father is and it might be your sister, so the same should apply also regarding the shtukis. That maybe this is your sister and it's your father. And says the Gemara, no, kol kihani mizani va'ozli. Are you going to say that we're going to be chayshish, that the father of this shtuki was mizana with his mother, and this same man was also mizana with this woman's mother? This is what you're being chayshish for, that this same man goes and is mizana with this punkt, with this man's mother, and with this woman's mother. It doesn't make sense to be chayshish to such a thing. So the Gemara asks, even if you're not going to be chayshish that this man is being mizana, doing an aveda with two different women, but bas shtukis lo yisa, but nevertheless the daughter of a shtukis, you should not be allowed to marry. Why? Again, shami yisa chaysami yaviv. Over here, there is a concern that maybe you're marrying the sister that share the same father. And over here, the Gemara can't answer that the same father is going to be mizana twice. It's not being mizana twice. The father was mizana with the mother, and that's the shtuki. And then this father went and married a shtukis. Minat Torah is allowed to marry a shtukis. It's mutter to marry a shtukis. This man went and married a shtukis, and now this daughter was more. So how do you know that the father of this shtukis is not your father, and so you're marrying your sister? So the Gemara is answering a simple question. If you're telling me that you're not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, shtuki is not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael because maybe he's marrying his sister, why would the Mishnah make a distinction between a shtuki marrying into Klal Yisrael or a shtuki marrying from his own kind, which is a daughter of a shtukis? Could be the same concern that he might end up marrying his sister. Elo, says the Gemara, lo ishchiche. The answer is because to be concerned that you might be marrying your sister is not common. That's one pshat Rashi says. Because why this chashash that maybe the one that you're marrying is your father, is your father and her father, that's a sister, that's not shchiach. The roiv is that it's not so. Another thing Rashi says, lo ishchiche means the whole concept of a shtuki happening is not a shchichtige thing. That a person doesn't know who his father is not a common thing. So when it comes to a situation which is not common, Chachamim did not make zedis for such things. So Hachanami, lo ishchiche. If so, this is a question. The Gemara is asking, so how could you tell me that a shtuki can't marry into Klal Yisrael because Chachamim made a gzeda? Why would Chachamim make a gzeda for a shtuki not to marry into Klal Yisrael? The whole idea, the whole existence of a shtuki is not a common thing, and Chachamim wouldn't make a gzeda for such a thing usually. Ella, says the Gemara, you're right. Usually Chachamim wouldn't make a gzeda, but over here, Maila also be yuchsin. When it comes to yichus, Chachamim made a special Maila, a special chumrah that we don't find usually in other places over here regarding yichus. And this is a concept that will come up a few times over here in the Gemara. When it comes to the concept of yichus, sometimes Chachamim will more machmer, even though according to the regular rules, there's no reason for Chachamim to be machmer.
Brothers and sisters go according to their mother and father?
Yeah. The issur of marrying a sister is whether it's a sister from a father, same father, or a sister the same mother. Rave now said similar thing regarding the asufi in our Mishnah. What's an asufi? An asufi is an abandoned child that doesn't know not who his father is and not who his mother is. Dvar Torah asufi kosher. Meaning a Torah, an asufi should also be kosher. And the Gemara goes through the different sveikis that there could be about the asufi that will lead us to the conclusion that he's kosher. My time, what's the reason? What are we concerned about? Eishes ish. So here by an asufi, we don't even know who the mother is. So it's possible that the mother was an Eishes ish when she had a relation with this man. But an Eishes ish bebaila toila. Usually when an Eishes ish is pregnant, she says that who is she pregnant from? From her husband, not from anybody else. So there's a very true, it could be she had a relation with someone else, but it also could be that she's pregnant from her husband. Now my ike, when could there be a concern where she cannot argue and say that I'm pregnant from my husband? There's two scenarios when she can't say that. One is miut arusais. There's a minority of cases if this is an eishes ish, but she's not yet fully married. She's not living with her husband yet. She's just an arusa. She still lives by her father. So in such a case, she can't say that she's pregnant from her father because she's not living with her husband. With her husband, that is, because she's not living with her husband. Another case where she can't say she's pregnant from her husband. And also, there's a minority of cases where the husband is overseas. In such a case, she also can't say she's pregnant from her husband. So those are the two scenarios where we have to be concerned that maybe she's an Eshes Ish and she had a relation with someone else. But, says the Gemara, that's only one possibility. But on the other hand, or two possibilities actually. But on the other hand, Kivin, the Ikke Pnuya, it could be that the mother was single when she had a relation with this man. That's one option. Another option over here to say that the child is not a mamzer, that the child is kosher. And also, V'ikenami the Machmas Ra'ovain. Another way to explain why this child was abandoned is that there was a time of hunger. And the child is totally kosher. But the parents, the mother, the father abandoned the child because they couldn't feed him. So we have two minority reasons to explain that maybe he's puzzled. Two reasons to explain why he's kosher. Just have a palga. So this is a suffix over here. It's a 50-50 suffix. Now, what does the Torah say when you have a child, which is a suffix, whether he's a mamzer or not? A confirmed mamzer is not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. A mamzer suffix yavai. A suffix mamzer is allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. Another thing we darshan as well, because vadehud lo yavai, a mamzer is not allowed to marry into a person that's definitely kosher, part of the call of Yidden. Ha b'kol suffix yavai. But if it's a call, which is a suffix, if he's part of Klal Yisrael or not, you are allowed to marry. So, just like by a shtuki, by a sufi as well, minatayra would be mutter. Ma tamam ra sufi pasul. Why, regarding a sufi, do we say that he's pasul to marry into Klal Yisrael? Again, the same concern. Shema yisa achaysa miyaviv. Because if he's marrying a woman, we don't know who his father is. So he might be marrying his sister from his father. So therefore, that's the chshasher. Again, the Gemara asks a similar question to before. If so, why are we saying that an Asufi is not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, but he's allowed to marry someone of the same type as himself? Asufis lo yisa, an Asufi should not be allowed to marry a woman that was abandoned, because Shema Yisa Achaisa, he might be marrying his sister, and over here, if the woman he's marrying is abandoned, this might be his sister, Beimi Yaviv, Beimi Ima. We don't know who this woman is. It could be his sister from his father, his sister from his mother, and both of them are Asar. So how can we allow him to marry? Says the Gemara, for that we're not concerned. Kol hani shadi v'azli. This mother here abandons all her children. That's where you're going to be chayshish, that maybe it's the same mother or the same father that abandons two of the children. That's not a common thing to be chayshish for. But again, the Gemara asks, but nevertheless, bas hasufi lo yisa, we should still be chayshish for the daughter of an asufi. You shouldn't be allowed to marry. Shema yisa chaysai. Maybe he's marrying a sister. So maybe the father was first mazana with his mother, and then the father went and married an asufis, and that's something which is allowed. The father is allowed to marry the asufis, and now this is the daughter of that asufi which was abandoned. So the mother was an asufi, the daughter was not abandoned. So the Gemara here can't ask the same question that the same father and mother would abandon both children. But the question is, a bas of an asufi, you don't know her identity, so why over here is it allowed for an asufi to marry this daughter of the asufi, or the asufis? Says the Gemara, what's the answer to this? Like we said before, eloloi shchiach. It's not common to say that it's a sister. Or as I mentioned, it's not the whole concept of an asufi, of an abandoned child, is not a common thing that happens. So Chanami, if so, asks the Gemara, lo shchiach, if the whole concept of an asufi is not a common thing, why would you say Chachamim were geyser here that they should have married to Klal Yisrael? Chachamim never make zaydas for uncommon cases. Says the Gemara, Ella, the answer is Maila also be Yuchsin. This is an exception. Chachamim were machmer, especially when it comes to the din of Yichus. Omar Rave, regarding this Asufi, an abandoned child, where there's a chashash that the reason why the parents abandoned the child is because the child is a mamzer. So the Gemara explains, when are we chayshish for this? Omar Rave bar Avhuna, Motzi Mol, if they find this abandoned child and he has a bris milah, ein by mishum Asufi. So over here, there's no concern that he's an abandoned child, which is puzzle, which is a mamzer. And Rashi says the reason is because, if not for the fact that he's kosher, his mother, his father wouldn't go through the tirche to give him a bris milah. They gave him a bris milah, that means that he was a kosher child. Mishalti hadme. If his limbs are in place when the child is born, the limbs have to be put into place properly, and you see that was done, ein by mishum asufi. There's also no concern that he's an asufi because his parents took care of him because he's not a puzzle child. Shayef mishcha, if you see that there was oils applied on him, like it's done when a child is born, or a malek kuchla, or by his eyes, there was different things that were put there over there to make his eyes beautiful, or rami chumri, or they put chumri is different knots that they tie on the child for a good sign. Like today, people put like a red bendel, something like that. Or toli piske, if he has in him a certain kind of kameya. Rashi says the piske is a kameya that's made with something that's written, or toli kameya is another kameya that's made with herbs. This is an amulet that the child is wearing. Ein by mishum asufi. In all these cases, the psul of asufi that maybe the child is puzzled doesn't apply, because if we see the parents took care of the child in all these different ways, we know that he's not a puzzled child. Tali bedikli, if you find a child that's hanging from a palm tree, like that child in a basket hanging from a palm tree. So what do you know? Is there anything to be concerned about here? So if he's hanging in a way that a chaya could reach him, so this is a real abandoned child that the parents don't care about. He's puzzled, and you have to be concerned. In lav, though, if he's hanging in a safe way, an animal can't reach him. There's no concern that he's a puzzled child. Zeradita, if he's in a tree that's called a zeradita tree, how are they trying to have a translation there for that tree? Or what?
Sorb tree.
Sorb tree, okay, whatever kind of tree this is. So this is a tree Rashi here brings. The Gemara says in Psachim that's a place that shadim hang out over there. And depends where this tree is. If it's smicha lamasa, if this is a tree that's near the city, so then yesh ba mishum asufi. Then we are concerned that it is an abandoned child, because that's the place where the shadim are, and the parents placed him there, so they're not concerned that they don't care about this child. Vim lav, if it's not near the city, then ein by mishum asufi. Then there's no issue of asufi, because it's a safe place. There's no shadim there, so he's a kosher child. Beik nishte, if you find an abandoned child by his shul, smichel masa, if this is near the city, so Rashi says in those times the shuls b'chlal were built out of the city. So if it's close to the city, and there's many people that are there, then he's doesn't have the doubt that maybe he's a mamzer, because the parents put him in a place that they know he's going to be found and taken care of. So they care about him. But if the shul is not near the city and there's not a lot of people that come there usually, then there's a chash psul, and he has the halacha of an asufi. Amar said another scenario. High pated the sufli. There's an area where you throw pated the sufli is like the leftover of dates that's thrown there for the animals to eat there. If the child was left there abandoned, yesh ba mishum asufi. So then you have to treat him as a puzzle, as a sufi, because it's a place that animals go to and the parents don't care about this child. Charifte denara. If the child is left in the center of a river where there's a lot of traffic of boats traveling there, ein ba mishum asufi. So then there's no issue of a sufi, because the parents left him in a place where he's going to be seen. Pishri, if he was left like in a corner in the side of a river where people don't go there and he's not going to be found so quickly, then yesh ba mishum sufi. Then it's really abandoned child. Tzidei reshus harabim, if a child was left on the side of the reshus harabim, ein ba mishum sufi. There's no issue of sufi, because it's the side and it's a place where people will find him and it's not a dangerous area, so the parents care about him. Reshus harabim, if a child is left in the center of the reshus harabim where there's a very big traffic and it's dangerous for the child to be left there, yesh ba mishum sufi. Over there, because of it's dangerous, the parents left him there, so the parents don't care. So there's the psul of a sufi. Amar Rava said another rule about that sufi. Ubishnei ravain. If you find this abandoned child in a year of a hunger, ein by mishum asufi. You don't have to be concerned that this child is an asufi, that he might be puzzled, because you'll say that the parents simply left him there because of the hunger. So the Gemara now wants to understand this halacha that Rava said regarding the hunger year. Where exactly was this child found? On which case is Rava speaking about? If the case of here is that the child was left in the middle of the Reshus Harabim where it's a danger, and you're saying that in a year of a hunger, this child is still going to be considered kosher, because it's a year of a hunger, the parents are ready to put their child in a place where he's going to get killed by the traffic. Why is the fact that it's a hunger year change anything? The fact that he's left in the middle of the street like that should still be a sign that the parents don't care. Rava must be speaking about a case where the child was left on the side of the road. If so, my area shnei ravain. So then why does it say over here that in a year of a hunger, then we say that probably the child was left there only because of the hunger and he's kosher? even without the years of the hunger, even if it's not a hunger, we said already before, on the side of the Rosh Hashanah, it's a place that's safer, and therefore we don't consider it to be a child that the parents don't care about. Elad, says the Gemara, ki itme de Rave, this rule about a hunger here, that Rave said about the Asufi was going on something else. Aha, the Omer of Yudah Omarav, Rabab, that is. Omer of Yudah Barzavdi Omarav. And he said the following rule. Kozman shebeshuk, as long as this abandoned child is still in the street, if a father or a mother come along and say, this is our child and the child is kosher, the father and the mother are going to be believed. Nesef minashuk, however, once somebody took this abandoned child in, now ein amanam olav. They're not going to be believed anymore to say that this is our child and that he's a kosher child. My time, why? Amarav explained, Hoyel v'yotza olav shem asufi. Once he already has the status of an asufi, now the father and mother are not believed anymore. Before he has the status of an asufi, he's there in the street and the father and mother come and pick him up and say, this is our child, so then they're believed. But once he has the status of an asufi, you're going to have Eidim for this to come and verify who he is. Now, but on this, Rava said, but if it's a year of a hunger, even when he was already taken in from the street and he already has the status of being an asufi, the father and mother are going to be believed to say that he is an asufi because in such a that he's kosher, that is because in such a time period where Nebuch, many people have to abandon a child. They have no choice. Chacham didn't want to passel. They wanted to give the parents a chance to be able to come and confirm and say that this is their child. Rav Chisda said regarding this point here, whether we believe the parents or don't believe the parents, so there's actually a few cases that fall into the same category. Shloishan amanim la'alter. There are 3 people that are going to be believed, and they're believed right away. Now here, the Chiddush in our case is usually when you come to verify such kind of things, the rule is you have to have Eidim to verify such kind of things. So here the Gemara is going to say there's 3 cases where there's an exception that you believe in an Eid Echad. 3 are believed right away. Eluhain, Asufi, Chaya, a nurse, a midwife, and a upeteres chavrisa. And a case where one woman exempts her friends, as we'll see in a moment what that refers to. Asufi hodamaran. Regarding Asufi, so as we just said, a child that's in the street and he wasn't yet taken in, so the father or the mother, one person, they're believed to say, this is my child and this child is kosher. Now by a chaya, what's the halacha by a midwife? The time you learned chaya, nemenes loima, a midwife is believed to say when a child is born, so if it's twins, and I have to know who's a bechor. So the midwife is believed to say, zeh yotze risha, and this child was born first, v'zeh yotze sheni, and this child was born second. When is the midwife believed? If she didn't leave the room, and came back. If she left the room and came back, then in a menace, she's not believed anymore. She left, could be who she thinks was exchanged. Rabbi Eliezer says, only if she's standing right there at her place, this midwife, then a menace she's believed to say who was born first. If she's not standing right there on her place, ain't in a menace she's not believed. The Gemara explains the difference between the 2 opinions here. My benayu, what's the difference? Ikke benayu, the difference is the hadar appa. If she turned around, if she remained in the same room, but she turned her face around. Okay, so according to Rabbi Eliezer, the moment she turned her face around, she's not believed anymore. Okay, so this is the case where a midwife is believed. So the Mefarshim here explained that this is a unique chiddush. Usually you have to have 2 eidim, and the reason why we believe 1 eid over here is because there's basically no other choice. The only way to know is by believing the midwife. So it must be that the Torah trusts the midwife. Now, peteres chavrisa. What's the case of peteres chavrisa? Says the Gemara, ma'ihidit. Now we learn the Mishnah as follows: Shalish nashim shayu yishenis b'mita achas. If there's three women that are sharing the same bed, v'nimtza dam tachas achas man, and then there's blood that's found under one of them. We don't know who the blood came from for the tomb of nida. Kulan tmeis. They're all going to be tameh. Now, what's if one of the women inspected herself and she's the nida? The blood came from her. So then he tmei v'kulan tairis. She's going to be the one that's tameh, and all of them are going to be tahir. So this is the case where she's believed to say that she's an eid echad. She's believed to say that she's tameh, and all her friends will be tahir. Rav Chisda says that's only Shabbat Gatzma Kashir Vest. That's only if she checked herself right away. Kashir Vest over here means she checked herself mamish right away. Then her friends are believed. But if she checked herself later, then that's too late. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Brais also the same thing about a midwife. Nemenes chaya loymar. A midwife is believed to say, Zeh Kayin, V'zeh Levi, this child is a Kayin, this child is a Levi, Zeh Nosen, Zeh Mamzer, this child is Posel because he's a Nosen or a Mamzer. We trust a midwife for this yichus. When is that true? If there's nobody else that's challenging what the midwife is saying. If someone else is challenging her and is saying the opposite, then ain't an amenes. She's not believed. So the Gemara clarifies what kind of a challenge are we talking about. Irar demai. What kind of a challenge are we talking about here? If we're talking about over here that the midwife is saying one thing, and then there's one witness that's saying against her. Says the Gemara, why should one witness be believed? Rabbi Yochanan said a rule. Ein arar pachas mishnayim. Anytime you have a situation where there's an error, one person is not believed to create any doubt over here. So if the midwife is saying that this child is a kayin or so on, an error of one person cannot go against this midwife. So therefore he says, Ela arar trei. What it means is when you have a challenge of two Eidim against the midwife, then we're going to believe the two Eidim against the midwife. But then the Gemara says, or if you want, I can tell you, even if there's just one person challenging what the midwife is saying, still, I will not believe the midwife, even though usually I don't pay attention to a challenge of one person, because over here it's different. When did Rabbi Yochanan say that you don't pay attention to a challenge when it's just one person? We had this in the Gemara in Gittin regarding a get. When you have a kosher to get, so one person just comes along and says that this get is possible, we don't pay attention to that one person. Why is that? That's if you have, for example, a get where there's a status, a chazaka that it's kosher, so you don't pay attention to one individual. But if there's no status of kashrus here, chad nami mehemen. So one person will also be believed to challenge what the midwife is saying. The midwife is coming and saying regarding a bunch of babies here, this is a kohen, this is a levi, there's no status of kashrus over here. So if there's no status of kashrus in such a case, even an irid of one individual will be believed to go against what the midwife is saying.